Loma. Good girl. All right, boys and girls, we're going to read square candies that look round. Now, what they mean by square candies that look round mean look around, like look over your shoulder. Okay. Everybody stopped and crowded to the door. The top half of the door was made of glass. Grandpa Joe lifted Charlie up so that he could get a better view. And looking in, Charlie saw a long table, and on the table there were rows and rows of small white square-shaped candies. The candies looked very much like square sugar lumps, except that each of them had a funny little pink face pointed to the side. At the end of the table, a number of Oompa Loompas were hastily pointing more faces on more candies. "There you are," cried Mr. Wonka. "Square candies that look round." "They don't look round to me," said Mike TV. "They look square," said Veruca Salt. "They look completely square." "But they are square," said Mr. Wonka. "I never said they weren't." "You said they were round," said Veruca Salt. "I never said anything of the sort," said Mr. Wonka. "I said they looked round." "But they don't look round," said Veruca Salt. "They look square." "They look round," insisted Mr. Wonka. "They most certainly do not look round," cried Veruca Salt. "Veruca, darling," said Mrs. Salt, "pay no attention to Mr. Wonka. He's lying to you." "My dear old fish," said Mr. Wonka, "go and boil your head." "How dare you speak to me like that?" shouted Mrs. Salt. "Ho," said Mr. Wonka, "just watch this." He took a key from his pocket, unlocked the door, flung it open, and suddenly, at the sound of the door opening, all the rows and rows of little square candies looked quickly round to see who was coming in. The tiny faces actually turned toward the door and stared at Mr. Wonka. "There you are," he said triumphantly. "They're looking round. There's no argument about it. They are square candies that look round." "By golly, he's right," said Grandpa Joe. "Come on," said Mr. Wonka. "We mustn't dawdle. Off we go." "Butterscotch and butter gin," it read on the next door they passed. "Now that sounds a bit more interesting," said Mr. Salt. "Glorious stuff," said Mr. Wonka. "The Oompa Loompas all adore it, and makes them quite silly. Now listen, you can hear them in there whooping it up." Shrieks of laughter and snatches of singing could be heard through the closed door. "They're drinking butterscotch and soda. They like this best of all. But we really mustn't keep stopping like this, or we'll never get to where we're going." They came to a long flight of stairs. Mr. Wonka slid down the banisters. The three children did the same. Mrs. Salt and Mrs. TV, the only women who were left, were getting very short of breath. Mrs. Salt could hardly keep up with her very short legs. "This way," cried Mr. Wonka. "Go slower," said Mrs. Salt. "Impossible," said Mr. Wonka. "We'll never get there if we don't go quickly." "Get where?" said Veruca Salt. "Never you mind," said Mr. Wonka. "You just wait and see." Oh, and the next chapter is chapter 24, Veruca in the Nut Room. And I have a feeling that it is not going to end well.